S.S.S. Mishpatim, Tov Pei Beis. And this week, when we get to S.S.S. Mishpatim, we all notice and we all see that the tone and the so-called storyline in the Torah changes a lot. Whereas from the beginning of Seder Bereshis, we were talking about the Avos and the Shvatim, Golus Mitzrayim, Yitzias Mitzrayim. Last week, Kabbalah HaTorah. And this week, we get into something which we want to call it a little bit more dry subject. And we'll explain a little bit what that means. We know that this week's Parsha has many laws that pertain to damages and some things that you are responsible to pay others, and you people being responsible for their actions. And in so many different ways, the Torah talks about how a person has to pay up sometimes. You do something wrong, you damage somebody else. The Torah tells you that you have to take responsibility, you have to pay. And Chazal tell us in the Medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Bechukoi Sai that it tells us about a theme that we've spoken about really many times, that what Hashem really wants is to have a dwelling place, a place to live on this world. Believe it or not, this world, a world full of Gashmias, a world full of Taivas, very different than the dwelling place that Hashem has way up above. But Hashem says, no, I would like to have a dwelling place here on this world. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that the Parshios in Seder Shemois speak to us about many of the ways that we can create this atmosphere. We can create a befitting home, this home that Hashem wants amongst us in this world, in Olam Hazeh. And we begin Seder Shemois by speaking about Yitzias Mitzrayim. And what do we say by Yitzias Mitzrayim? We say the first thing that a Jew has to know is that Hashem chose us, and underline us, not the other nations of the world. Hashem chose us to be His host. Hashem wants a dwelling place on this world, and He chose us. We're the fortunate ones, we're the lucky ones, we're the ones that were chosen as the children. Hashem said to us, B'ni b'chari Yisrael. B'ni b'chari Yisrael means that you are my children, you're my firstborn, you're my child. So if Hashem wants to have a dwelling place in this world, and He calls us His Bechor, He calls us His children, Hashem is telling us that I want to live in your house. We're all part of the same family, Kaviyachol, that you belong with me. Hashem is saying that we are the ones who will carry the flag, and we're the ones who have the responsibility to create this home that Hashem wants to have on this world. And that's the beginning of Seder Shemois in Parsha Shemois. And we then continue with last week's Parsha, Kabbalah HaTorah. And by Kabbalah HaTorah, Hashem brought the Torah down to this world. So now, on this world, after Kabbalah HaTorah, and now there is a Torah on this world, and Hashem has told us that I want to live with you, then we come to this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, Hashem is telling us that not just the Aseres Hadibros are the laws that I want you to live by. Hashem is telling us a continuation of what we heard last week in the Aseres Hadibros. All the laws in this week's Parsha, it's a continuation of last week, and it says that in order for Hashem to dwell here, in order for Hashem Kaviyachol to be comfortable on this world, that we need emes. You have to live in a world where there are laws. You have to live in a world where people are responsible. There has to be a place in this Olam HaSheker that is so full of fantasy and taiva and illusion and things that we think are so big and so important. And as we know, everything is hakoil hava, like Shlomo HaMelech says, everything and all the things that we think are luxuries and things that give us pleasure, they are all illusions. So in this, yes, in this Olam HaSheker, there has to be a place of Mishpatei Hashem Emes. That's the Mishpatim. That's this week's Parsha. And the Kedusha of this Emes, of this truth, of living by what is really true, by living with the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has nothing to do with the way laws work in the world around us. You know, the way laws work in the world around us, more so today than ever before, really, the laws are based on feelings. You know, you lean left, you lean right, liberal feelings, conservative feelings. Whoever's in power, that's the way you make laws where people are bleeding heart liberals because you feel bad for people. They're not responsible for anything, right? You could go into a store now and you could you could steal and loot up to $900, and you could walk out of the store with all the merchandise because there are no laws. We feel bad for you, and we feel bad to say anything that might stop you from committing crimes. In this Olam HaSheker, in Klal Yisrael, we have to create a place that we live with the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where the psak is based on the Dvar Hashem and nothing else. The verdict is the Dvar Hashem. Whatever Hashem says is right. Whatever Hashem says is right. That's what goes. And when a dayan paskins based on feeling, then it's neged Torah. The Torah tells us what a person has to pay, and that's it. That's the bottom line. A dayan who's doing judging in the right way does not dan based on feeling. And Mishpatim follows right after the S.S.S. Dibros in the Torah. The S.S.S. Dibros, we know, are Kodesh Kodashim, and so too the laws of the Torah and the laws of living amongst people and being responsible. Those Mishpatim are also Kodesh Kodashim. We're creating an atmosphere that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will feel comfortable to live in. The Beis Yosef writes at the beginning of Choshen Mishpat about, it says, Kol Dayan Shadon Din Emes. We talk about a judge who rules Din Emes La'amitoi. It's called the true of all truths. Emes La'amitoi. What does Emes La'amitoi mean for a dayan? What does it mean true? I mean, either it's true or it's not true. What's Emes La'amitoi? So the Beis Yosef says that if a dayan, let's say you have a judge, and he comes to the correct judgment, but with that judgment, he develops feelings for one of the parties. He develops feelings of either liking or not liking one of the parties. He has feelings for one of them. Says the Beis Yosef that is not called the absolute truth, even if you get it right. Even if you get it right, but if you have feelings and you're pulled one way or the other, your heart is pulled one way or the other, whether you like the person, you don't like the person, that's not called Emes La'amitoi. That is not the absolute truth. Din Torah is based solely on the Dvar Hashem, what Hashem says the halacha is, and not on anything other than that. Like the Gemara Masechta Gittin, Daf Peiches Amud Beis tells us, Ve'ela Mishpatim Asher Tosim Lifneihem. The Torah tells us Lifneihem to put it before them. Lifneihem, we learn, means Lifneihem and not Lifnei Akum. That it has to be in front of a Jewish judge, one who judges by the way, the laws of Hashem. And listen to why. Listen to why it has to be Lifneihem and not in front of a guy. Says the Nesivos Shalom, based on this Gemara and Masechta Gittin, because even if a guy comes to the right decision, it's because he did it intellectually. Because in his mind, it makes sense. You weigh all the options, and in his mind, and let's say he rules in the way that the Torah would want you to rule. That's not called lifneihem. That's not called the halacha the way Hashem wants the halacha to be brought out. If he does it for any other reason, but because the Torah said so, that's not called the real emes, the real truth. That's not mishpat haTorah. That is not the dvar Hashem. And that is why Parshas Mishpatim, our Parsha, is straight after the S.S.S. Hadibros in the Torah. Because it's all one theme. To be Mekayim, the Tachlis of the world. And like we said at the beginning of the Shir, what is the Tachlis of the world, the purpose of the world? It's to create an abode, a home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu on this world. And we all know that by us having our environment and our homes and everything that we build, our friends, our people that surround us, the way we conduct ourselves amongst our friends, the way we do business, we have to be different. We have to be asking ourselves at every juncture, at every turn, is what I'm doing right now making HaKadosh Baruch Hu comfortable? Hashem could have wanted a home up in the Shemayim. But yet Hashem said, I want to come here. I want to come here. I want to live amongst you. You are B'nai B'chayri Yisrael. You're the people I'm proud of. You're my children. So within that framework of having good midos, of behaving in a way that stands out, that no, we're not like other people, comes also following the laws of the Torah. And in next week's Parsha, we continue in the physical way of building the home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once we already know that we're part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's family, and we had Maimon Har Sinai, and we have the laws, next week the Torah tells us in Parshas Teruma and Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakov, Pekudei, the Torah talks to us and tells us how we physically build the Mishkan. Now that you got it all together, now that you understand what type of person you have to be, how you have to follow the laws of the Torah, then the Torah says, okay, now we could build that physical home, the Osuli Mikdash, B'shochanti B'soicham. Now I could come and I could live in that Mishkan. The Gemara Masechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yutes Amud Beis, tells us, Kol ha'omer vayechulu, and we're going to say it tomorrow night, in the davening, we'll say it in Kiddush, Kol ha'omer vayechulu, it's as if Na'aseh shutaf la'Kadosh Baruch Hu b'maisa bereishis. You become a partner with Hashem. So really, what is this partnership? Because you say vayechulu, and you acknowledge that Hashem created the world, and He stopped working on the seventh day, that you become a partner, Maisa Bereshis. I mean, you talk about being a partner in real estate. Imagine, you're a partner in the creation of the whole world. The answer is, says in Nesivos Shalom, the theme that we're saying right now. That when you say Vayechulu, you're saying Eidus, that in this world, we're creating a place where Hashem is Yochid and Miyuchad. The world was created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it for a purpose, and we're acknowledging that we want to live for the purpose that Hashem created the world for. HaKadosh Baruch Hu worked for 6 days. He stopped working on the 7th day. But now we have to continue building this world. We have to continue doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you live in this world and you're creating the environment, you live among the laws, the Mishpatim that Hashem wants us to live by, then you become Naseh Shutaf Im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem, we're in a partnership. Hashem, we are now building this world together. And that's something we have to keep in mind, that now the idea of this world is in everything that we do, to ask the question first, am I making this a comfortable place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And by following the laws of the Torah, we're taking a very big step in that direction.